nice front and back, leader's garment. Quite happy.
It's alright, isn't it? Looks pretty good in that bad boy.
Excellent, I think the word you're looking for is... Look at that thing. Looks beautiful, doesn't it? Beautiful.
Now, only if you're ready for this.
Welcome back to the OTB podcast, the original and still the best New Zealand mountain bike podcast. But this week, I think I'm actually going to have to go back on that tagline a little bit, because joining me is probably one of my favourite Americans, a buddy of mine that I still catch up with pretty regularly, Sean McClendon, aka Griz. How are you, dude?
Kieran, I am doing well, my man. I'm honored to be on this show, kind of following up Sam Hill in the MSA recap. And then, man, your intro is just on point. The Rennie voiceover, the little Earth vibes. I absolutely love the intro to your podcast, dude. Great work.
Oh man, that's one of my favorites from Earth One, that section, and it felt so good. It just felt right to have a bit of Rennie, bit of Hill in there. It was just perfect.
Absolutely. I was thinking about it. I was listening to the MSA episode today, and I was like, oh man, my voice is going to be featured after that intro. Sick.
Yeah, I mean, like I said after I had Sam on a few weeks ago, I was like, I pretty much just wrap this podcast up now, because I've hit the peaks, but now I might just be getting to the very top with you on here.
Ooh, me over the top of Sam Hill? I will take that as a compliment, my man. Appreciate that.
No, it's good. It's good. So we message a bunch all the time talking about downhill and US downhill and all sorts of stuff. And I mean, it's a subject that's close to my heart. I chased the dream of racing in the US. I followed in the footsteps of the John Cicaldes, the Nathan Rankins, all the Kiwis and the Aussies that came over to race. And I think it's a subject we're both pretty passionate about. So we thought we would catch up to talk about why the sport needs US downhill. And I mean, it's coming back, right, Griz? I think it's looking good at the moment. The future's bright.
Yeah, the Monster Energy Pro Downhill Series got a lot of buzz this year, and ideally it just keeps going and growing at a nice sustainable rate and gives riders an opportunity to make a career of this dangerous craft, where there's limited opportunities to do so in this current climate.
It seems to be getting tougher and tougher, right? It was reasonably hard to make a World Cup when we were racing. I mean, we're talking like 15 years ago now, but by the looks of what's happening with this, reform, so to speak, of World Cup downhill going on in 2025, from what we can see, it looks like it's going to be a more elite series, which to me, you know what, I'm not that opposed to, because I think it should be the pinnacle. And also I see it allowing other series like this Monster Pro Downhill Series to actually really hit its peak of where it should be too.
Right. I'm going to bring this up because I know you're a fan of Supercross, and I know you're a fan of Jeremy McGrath, like most of us.
Yeah.
In Jeremy's biography, Wide Open: Life in Supercross, he gave this analogy of making a factory team being statistically about equal as becoming an astronaut. And that is true for World Cup downhill. I mean, according to my Alexa, I did this last night. I have to double check it. But as of 2020, again, this information is from Alexa, so take it for a grain of salt. But as of 2020, there were 16 female astronauts and 32 male astronauts. And that sounds like a World Cup downhill field for 2025.
Yeah, it's probably not far off it. And yeah, I mean, for us, we grew up in the era of Norba being huge, when it was on par with the World Cup series. And I don't know, I just get this feeling that we're going to see this style of, this size of racing come back to me. I think we're going to see the World Cup, and we're going to see the, this Pro Downhill Series, and they're going to be damn near on par, I think.
Positively, the depth of talent, Kieran, as you well know, I don't think it's ever been deeper in the sport of downhill racing at any level, right? World Cup to your regional races to national races. I mean, here in the stateside, any of these regional races is I mean, stacked with talent from the juniors all the way up to the pros. You know, you can't just show up to any race on U.S. soil and just expect it to be a cakewalk. I mean, riders are throwing down. The fitness element it's just like how Supercross motocross is now. Everybody's training professionally. Everyone's dieting professionally. It's hardcore. And yeah, with UCI going, I'm like you said, man, I'm all in support of it. Let it be the pinnacle of the sport. Let them be, you know, that top 1%. But that doesn't take away from the depth of talent that, you know, deserves an opportunity to shine. And, you know, you look at it, I just see it like this. There's a fork in the road for downhill racing. And like motocross, racers will have an opportunity to become a star in Europe or a star in America.
Mm-hmm.
Pick your pleasure.
That's kind of exactly the way I've been looking at it. Sort of, you know, the World Cup has gone so European that I kind of see it almost being that same as like AMA Supercross, motocross, and you know, motocross Grand Prix, like MXGP for those that follow it. Like I just feel this could be the progression that we see coming forward. But,
and that's the goal. That's what Clay Harper wants. You know, he doesn't.
Yeah.
The goal isn't for a U.S. national series to become a feeder series in a World Cup. The goal is for it to be its own thing, its own opportunity, and its own platform for riders to rise to the top.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we probably should go back a little bit because I'm sure there's a few people who don't know your history and maybe even my history of racing. And that
we
US side
are
of things.
forgotten dinosaurs, dude.
We're old, man.
Man, I got that humble pie, which I'm all about ego death. I mean, that's kind of my big post-injury. That's what my life's all about. But I was reminded this year going to announce the Downhill Southeast races that I am digital dust in the wind. No one reads print. Yep. No one knows what Decline magazine was. Like,
RIP.
RIP print. So,
so I mean, like you grew up in Southern California, and I guess you probably grew up racing a bunch of stuff around like Big Bear and that sort of thing. Where did your journey begin?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Where did your journey begin, like into racing downhill?
Oh, journey began moving to the mountains of San Diego County. So I moved from Chula Vista, California, which is where the United States Olympic Training Center is. And if anyone follows like UCI BMX Supercross, they're probably aware of the Chula Vista Olympic Training Center.
Yeah.
So I moved out to a small town called Pine Valley, which is up in the mountains at about 4,000 feet. And there was a professional downhiller. This is 1996, mind you. So generation one of downhill racing. You know, the sport of downhill was born in 1990. That's when the first World Champs happened. So, you know, I'm introduced to mountain biking in 90. Well, actually, before that, I was introduced to mountain biking at dirt jumps in Chula Vista, which are no longer there. But like, you know, my buddies that skateboarded that had like, they would take their mom and dad's Trek 7800 or whatever it was, and then just go fold rims and fold frames at dirt jumps. So, that was kind of my intro to mountain biking, was watching these bikes just fold at Honda Hill in Chula Vista. But then fast forward to 96, moved to Pine Valley. There's a pro rider named Ryan Dawson who rode for Foes in the Devo program. So he came up in the era of like the Houseman brothers, Colin Bailey, like that was his main competitors growing up.
Yeah.
My older brother became good friends with Ryan Dawson, and I was just like enthralled with downhill. I mean, that Foes Weasel just blew me away. I was like, that's a dirt bike and a BMX bike in one. I need to get a piece of that. And luckily there was a local downhill race in 10 miles from my parents' house called Sagebrush Safari, and entered that in 1999. 2 months later, went up to Big Bear to spectate the World Cup that Sean Palmer and Missy Giove won, and saw the cranked team. Like, dude, like, backstory, like, I grew up playing ice hockey, so I kind of grew up with these like dangerous sports and knew that like I was like supposed to be some kind of gnarly dude or whatever. Seeing that World Cup downhill race at Big Bear was like, this is the type of gnarly dude I want to be. Seeing Nathan Rennie come barreling down that mountain with a snap crank arm, like one-legged, just giving it all he's got. Iconic. I was like, look, Dad, this is what I'm doing with my life right here.
Yep.
We're coming back here
This
next
is
summer,
me.
all summer. So, yeah, I did the first downhill race, had good success, won that. And then by 2000, I entered the Big Bear Amateur Cup Series, which was like such a good grassroots race series. Some of the pros, like Eric Carter, Lopes, like we would see some of the pros at the early Am Cup rounds. They would use it as like a preseason race. And then Big Bear obviously had Norba Nationals every year. It was always the opening round of the Norba season. So my first Norba National was at Big Bear in 2001. In
No,
what
so
was basically
that's right. I mean, that's right in the prime of like the Norbas, really, like Chevy trucks and that as sponsors and
exactly, yeah. Sobe beverages, Chevy trucks. And to kind of go back to the 99 World Cup to paint the picture there, it was semi-truck, 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 semi-truck. I mean, it was just like what a modern supercross, motocross pit is today, but at a mountain resort in 1999. And then it was inverted. Like if you were to go to an outdoor national or supercross race at a stadium, there was just bros in box vans on two strokes getting lit and ripping laps, you know?
Maybe mountain biking just came in too early. Like maybe we were just too far ahead of the curve.
I think so. Yeah, that 90s capitalism, it was weird. All these big companies were like, oh, new, extreme, let's dump a ton of money. And then the bottom fell out.
And all that.
Yeah. So it was one of those situations where, the Norba story, I know we're shifting around here, but this, what we've identified, like the era that I'm from, right? And I've now coined this, the BMXers are calling it the mid-school era. So it's mid-school downhill, 90s, 2000s. Yeah, so the dawn of the mid-school era is kind of when I got into it. Bikes were just starting to get okay. Like disc brakes were becoming. I mean, to also kind of paint the picture of equipment. I mean, I started off on V brakes. Shoot, even before that, cantilever brakes. Like my first downhill race, I was on cantilever brakes on a hardtail.
I mean, I feel old, but you're making me feel young at the moment, so that's all right.
Well, we're only like a year apart, right?
Yeah, it can't be that much, but I think you just found mountain bikes a bit earlier than I did.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, I mean, I moved out to the country, so that was it.
So yeah, you hit it right. Like, I mean, your first kind of Norba races were right in that peak of it, as it kind of, I guess probably by like another maybe, well, like 5 years, the kind of whole Norba thing had died off again. Really, I guess by kind of like hard. mid 2000s, 2000, like mid 2004, Honda. Honda made its debut with the RN01, and they raced the Norba Nationals and did like 1 or 2 World Cups. But then, within a couple of years after that, it was basically kind of died off. Yeah,
unfortunately, the coverage fell through the big Chevy trucks, Sobe, all that stuff. To get off on a little side tangent, actually, like mountain biking is a good indicator of the general economy, right? So like when mountain biking fails, give it 24 to 36 months, there's going to be like catastrophic blowout for everything else.
Yeah.
That seems to be this repetitive pattern.
Yeah.
So, but it was that like in 2003, that was my last year racing juniors. That was when they did the Norba, they called it Norba Unplugged, right? So that was the first year that Chevy, Sobe, like they had all pulled their sponsorship dollars out. But the good lesson learned was that that race series, it just grew too fast, right? It was just like companies just bought the sizzle. They threw the kitchen sink at it. Stuff happened in the economy. Then, just like a light switch. Money was on, money was off. Bang. So, and since then, American Downhill, like a national series has just kind of been like, I mean, we had the Norbas transition to the National Mountain Bike Series, which you were a part of that.
So that was, I mean, that was my, like, I mean, I grew up watching, John Cicaldi win 2 Norba National Series titles, Nathan Rankin killing it, a bunch of other guys. And that was like, those were the 2 key guys though for me growing up. I was like, I want to be those guys. I want to be a JK. I want to be a Rankin. And kind of funnily enough, I followed in their footsteps somewhat, ended up riding for Foes in 2006. So that was my first season in the US, lived at Brent Foes' house. lived in lived in his attic in Pasadena, which was like maybe one of the hottest places on earth that I've ever been in my life at night. But yeah,
No kidding.
and then that was kind of that led on to like another probably 5 or 6 years, I guess, of primarily US downhill racing. Like this scene was still pretty good at that point. You know, it wasn't the
Hmm.
Norba days, but like that kind of national mountain bike series was pretty strong with
Yeah, for a rider, I mean, if you had a good personality and you had good results, you could get a lot of coverage, which then you could
yeah,
convert into sponsorships for the next season. And man, going back to Kirkcaldy and Rankin, because they were SoCal-ish riders, they rode for SoCal teams.
mm,
Oh, we saw them at local trails. And
yeah,
so like the Kiwis and the Aussies had a massive, massive, massive impact on American downhill racing.
yeah,
I mean, point blank period, when Sam Hill came to the scene, we all knew we sucked and we had a lot of catching up to do if we wanted to bump up to this next level. So,
mm.
and then
I'd
kind of
love
going
to
back to
like. I was gonna say I'd love to
uh,
just dive back. Maybe like you'd have to go scrounge really hard, I think, to find the results. But go back and actually look, say, through like 2000 to 2010 in like the Norba National Mountain Bike Series, and just look at the winners because I would bet like 50% of them are from the Southern Hemisphere, like Kiwis and Aussies.
positively, Justin Leov, killer.
Yeah.
Sam Hill, Brent Atkinson. Yeah, the list
Mm.
is, goes on
The
and on.
list.
Andrew
Oh,
Neatling,
yeah. Yeah, you
Jared
had like
Rando,
Jared Rando, Emil Cavalier
Emil
on Giant,
Cavalier.
like yeah, and dudes like
Just heavy hitters after. And then you
yeah,
came along and we're like, dude, even the privateer Kiwis are kicking ass. Like, we got to step
yeah.
our game up.
Hey, I won two nationals, and those are two of my biggest highlights of my racing career. So I'm pretty
That's
stoked
what's
with
up.
that.
What races did you win?
Angel Fire,
Okay,
in
I thought that was right.
2008. Yeah, and then which was the first round I came over for that season. So straight off the
Okay.
plane to Angel Fire, and then I think it was a dude by the name. I think it was Kane Leonard, Colorado dude
Yes.
that I
Yes.
beat there.
Yep.
Gwyn qualified first. I qualified second, and then I won it. So that was, that's one of my crowning moments of beating
And
Aaron Gwyn,
it's
even though he was not a name at that
yeah,
point, really.
yeah. He was about to be though. He was
Yeah,
about to be.
and then I won Wyndham, the first time they ever raced at Wyndham. So before it became a
And
World Cup.
but was it the general same track as the World Cup?
Yeah, it was the same as what they raced the first. Yeah, well, the whole time as a World Cup, basically.
Just
So
short, high intensity, kind of Bromont style pinner
yeah,
track.
yeah. Shout out to Ryan Kondrashov. We were sitting on the chairlift. I'd qualified first, and we were going up on the chairlift, and someone went. So we saw someone going by. We're going up for race runs. I get the feeling it was like Cole Bangett, and Ryan goes, "That dude's going to win today," and it pissed me off so much that I was like, "Right, I'm doing everything I can to win this race now." I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
"Screw
Watch
you,
this,
Ryan.
Ryan.
I'm going to go prove you wrong." So
Hold
that
my
was a good
beer,
race.
Connor Schroff.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, so that went through to like, yeah, 2010, I think was the last full season I did. Came back in 2012, did a couple of races as well. But I mean, it was such a great option to come race as a Southern Hemisphere resident. I don't know what you call us, for the
Yeah.
Kiwis, for the Australians, because you're one flight away. You can fly direct, fly directly
Hmm.
into LA, San Francisco, or something like that. Yeah, like I ended up just becoming super good friends with Mikey Hatteras, so I'd fly into San Francisco and hang out with him a lot. And I mean, shout out to him, he homed me for a long time before, before things got a bit more serious. But it was such a good option, and everyone speaks English. It's easy to find people to hang out with and ride with, and yeah, I can just see that coming back. Like I think this is the new pathway. I think.
Totally, Kieran. I mean, me growing up, I never set out to be a World Cup downhill pro ever. I set out to be a Norba national rider. I knew my place. I've always just been dedicated to U.S. downhill. And you just said that everyone speaks English. That was a big thing for me. I'm a pretty dense American. I'm not bilingual. I know a little bit of Spanish, like no French, but I never wanted to be in a hospital where there was a language barrier and I own it, but I just didn't want to
Yeah.
like be a carcass in a foreign hospital and then something goes sideways because I don't know the language. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to bring it up, but it's a dangerous game, and that was always in the back of
Yeah.
my head, you know. Like, and anytime I did race in Europe, I went to Champéry in '07, and dude, I had $200 to my name at that race. I was on the other side of the world, completely solo. That was like me getting into being a Decline magazine editor. Like GT
Yeah.
Bikes paid for my trip. Like I was a journalist that like raced a World Cup by way of the Decline Team America, find the loophole, UCI trade
Yeah.
team, you know, the loophole. But dude, like I survived Champéry. I didn't race there. You know what I mean? And like
Mm.
at no point, and I
That was a
think,
gnarly one too.
oh my God, yeah, in the first year of it, nobody had raced a track like that. I mean, the only thing
No.
that had given me some experience for that level of gnarly, steep alpine downhill was racing Psychosis in British Columbia in '05.
Yeah.
So like I had experience with like dragging a leg because braking wasn't doing the job. You know what I mean? And it was that steep in Champéry.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, like to be going back to paint the picture of Champéry, you know, in 2007, this is like Sam Hill's going on his tear, right? He's just like
Mm.
the James Stewart of mountain biking at this time, unstoppable.
Yep.
Most riders were opting for minimal padding, just like niche and guard combos, a full face
Yeah.
helmet, gloves, shorts, short sleeves. Like
Yeah.
the Aussie Sohem free like surf vibe was like very much taking root. So to show up to Champéry and see the pits where like there's Rennie in full body armor, there's Petey in full body armor, not uncommon, but haven't seen that in a couple of seasons.
Mm.
What is Andrew Neethling doing with a full Dainese suit? What is Sam Hill doing with elbow pads? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just seeing, and I was like, I came to this race with like my Brian Lopes, Troy Lee Nishins, my Decline Team America kit, and a D2. Like I'm clearly underprepared. And then
I mean,
you know, going to
this is the era where Hill raced and won Fort William World Champs in that same year in a skin suit with no pads. He didn't even run
no
knee
pads,
pads.
no
Yep.
pads,
No
yeah,
pads.
no pads, full commitment.
So gnarly. But yeah,
And
Champéry
then
was a different story.
it was gnarly. It was gnarly. And then like you know, I like John Canepa and Andrew Neethling homed me in the pits for that weekend, and like
Yeah.
to hear Needles, who was like at one of his peaks in his career, he just told me, "Hey Grizz, don't worry about like crashing on this track because it's gonna happen. Just ride it out until it does." Like paraphrasing there, but that was his like
Yeah.
don't worry about like don't like you're going to crash. Just ride it out till it happens. I'm like,
Great advice.
what am I doing here? I got
Yeah.
$200. I'm not prepared for a disaster.
Like
So,
I am out of my depth right now.
I'm out of my depth. I'm out of my depth.
It was yeah, I mean that was a great era still, even of racing, you know, and like of racing in the US as well, you know, like there's just so many good venues, so many good tracks, you know, like the East Coast. I loved it on the East Coast. I mean, like you throw a rock and you're on another mountain with another wicked, you know, like Eastern State Cup or something like that. That was like, you know, maybe it was just I wouldn't call it a local race, but like a regional race. But there was still so many heavy hitters. It was such good racing. So
Yeah.
I think it looks like that's coming back again with the likes of, you know, Downhill Southeast and all that going on.
Kieran, it's not only coming back, it's better than it was. I mean, the depth of talent, I'm not kidding you. There's about 50 juniors, both male, like predominantly male, but there's like 50 male juniors and about 12 female juniors that are going to basically be filling the pro ranks in the next season or two domestically here in the US. Some of them will be, you know, potentially candidates for, you know, one of the 50 slots or whatever the World Cups are going to go to, but
Yeah.
the depth of talent is real, and
This has got to be, I feel like this has got to be the strongest field, like depth of talent the US has ever seen, you know, like, I mean, the US has produced legends, Sean Palmer, Kurt Voorhees, you know, like Aaron Gwynn, one of the greatest to do it. But you look at the World Cup now, you've got like Dakota Norton, who could have potentially won world champs plus 2 or 3 World Cup rounds this year. He's just had a bit of unfortunate luck. You've got Lucas Shaw, who has just been there for the last like 6+ years, you know, right there. I mean, you've got Asa Vermette, who is, I don't even want to call him the next big thing. He's the big thing already, just signed with Red Bull.
He is.
That kid's incredible. I mean, Aaron Gwynn still proved he's not done yet at Mont Saint Anne with a 7th in qualifying. I was like,
He's
holy
a threat.
shit.
He's
Cool
a
winners
threat.
here. Ryan Pinkerton, Dylan Maples, like the World Cup scene is strong. And I'm sure I've missed a couple of people as well, but man, those are just guys off the top of my head that I'm like, the US is at this level of talent that I don't think they've had for a long time.
I don't think ever. I ever. Yeah, no, that like you missed Austin Dooley. Austin Dooley's a ringer.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
And Dante Silva. You know, Dante still has room to grow and climb. I mean, it's just, and then the juniors, man, Ryder Lawrence, Lucas Dodora, those two dudes are coming. Gavin Tomlinson on the female side of things. Man, I'll just touch like my favorite battle of this season. I know we're jumping around, but my favorite battle this season of 2025 was Eris Van Leuven, sick Kiwi, huge fan, nothing short of impressed by her, and Ali Osgard. Right, like two and out. So right, like Ali Osgard prior to the season, people like domestically, people knew the Osgard sisters, but you know, Ali this year just decided I'm going to focus on domestic racing, and she is still 16 and is a national champion, like Monster Energy Pro Downhill.
Wow, I didn't realize
champion,
she was so
elite.
young.
So young.
Yeah.
So young.
Amazing.
And there's Tegan Heap. She was factory pivot this year. I think Tegan Heap, minus the kind of craziness of Missy, is the second coming of Missy Giove, in that Tegan is either going to perform winning podium or she's crashing out like checkers or wreckers. Like she is that high intensity Missy Giove style racer. Kale Cushman, she's another ringer. There's the Downhill Southeast Series is just the breeding ground for like domestic U.S. racing talent right now, and it's cool to see some of the international riders come through and do the Downhill Southeast race in, you know, also in conjunction with like the Monster Energy Pro Downhill Series. At least that's what happened this year. It was awesome, Kieran. And like you said, I mean, the depth of talent, it's just never, and on the U.S. side of things, it's never been like this. And guess what? There's room for Aussies and Kiwis and Canadians and Latin Americans to come up and challenge these guys and girls.
This kind of comes back to the whole, you know, like we're both big motocross, supercross fans, and it's like you know, like you could legitimately have like a top performing series packed with Americans with a bunch of, you know, you look at supercross and you've got, you know, like these Europeans that come in, Ken Roxon, dudes like that, you know, Ben Townley from New Zealand came over. You've got the Lawrence brothers, you know, it's like you could have a similar kind of diversity going on in downhill racing. And I don't see why not. Like, I think, you know, with like Clay Harper and his team, from what it just, I don't know Clay. I've never met him, but just from listening to things, you know, like his Vital podcast he did, and you know, watching from the outside, it looks like he is the right man to make this work.
Clay and his wife and family are pouring everything they've got into this, but you know, going back to the learning curve from Norba, is their goal is not to blow the series up real fast, just get a bunch of money and blow it up quick. It's sustainable growth focused. They want to build a nice, sustainable, healthy racing series. Yeah. And they're really about building a race economy. So that's another element to the rise of the US downhill opportunity, is that, you know, a lot of riders, I'm noticing the culture of downhill right now is all about like elite World Cup. Like, I just want to be racing World Cups. And I'm like looking at, I'm not going to name any names, but I see some riders, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Do you just want to be in Europe getting your ass kicked? Or like what's the goal here?
Yeah, any of these, like, I mean, there's still a few young guys that I've talked to around here, kind of a couple of guys that I mentor, coach sort of thing. And I'm like, you should be looking at the US. Because, like, you can still build to go race World Cups in a couple of years' time. But I'm like, you're about to come out of juniors and you're going to go try race World Cups. And, like, I hate to say it, but you're going to get your ass handed to you. Like, it's going to get harder. Like, you could go to the US, you're guaranteed racing, you're guaranteed good racing, you can hone your skills, you can get better, you can build relationships with sponsors and things like that, and then you go race World Cups.
Yeah, and if you're a male, you seed. If you qualify, or we call it seeding, because, you know, it's seeding in the US, but if you seed in the top 8, then you're getting on a YouTube replay, which is doing pretty good for year one, like views. I mean, average views are around 50K. Yeah, they're decent. I'm looking at like the World Cup replays. I'm like, okay, sweet. Like people are paying attention.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's just about building a race economy. So if the rider mindset can shift of like, I just see a lot of riders who are just chasing that dragon of like elite world, top high performance, and I get it. If that's what makes you tick as an athlete, I'm obviously not gonna judge you for it, but like, dude, I don't come from a trust fund kind of like, I come from a very like grassroots, middle class, like blue collar kind of / white collar kind of mentality. So,
yeah.
And furthermore, like we didn't touch on my catastrophic injury in 2010, like life threatening injury. Dude, I have nothing to show. Like I have nothing to show for my racing efforts at all, other than like people love me in the mountain bike community, which obviously means a lot. I'm a part of something that's a lot bigger than me, which is soul food. It makes me tick. But like, dude, I don't want any other athlete to go through the adversity I went through, the near, like, like the debt, I want to see riders thrive. And I don't know that World Cup is going to really provide that for many riders, whereas there's an opportunity here.
Yeah.
So that's what I hope that.
There's money to be made, but you've also got to be a Loic Bruni, you've got to be a Troy Brosnan, you've got to be an Emery Perrin, you've got to be in that top 10% to be making anything really.
Yeah, and you really got to be honest with yourself. If you're not at the tip of the spear, what's the point?
My World Cup pro season, my salary was $5,000. $5,000. I look at that now, like, it's funny because I look back on it in two minds, and I'm like, one, I'm fucking stoked that I got paid to go race a bike. But I also look back on it now and I'm like, what the hell is $5,000 going to get me? That doesn't get me anywhere. Like, I literally worked the whole time in the off season up until it was time to come and go racing. It was like, that was the level of commitment still to it though.
Oh, positively. I'm right there with you, brother. I mean, I worked for Gary Hickman. I worked for my sponsors. I worked for Avent Bombshell from 2002 to 2007. So we'd like go do my training. I'd go ride Danny Meadows' land backyard, the original pump track in San Diego. I'd be building Bombshell race forks. I'd be like going to the Long Beach port to go pick up frames and raw materials. Like, it was very hands on. I'm sure. When you were riding for Foes, did you get in the shop over there and?
Oh hell yeah, every day. So we would so I was with a guy called Tim McAzee, who was a guy that I was racing with from over here at the time, and we were living there, and we would go ride in the morning. We'd go out early, go ride because it got so hot, and then we'd go spend the rest of the day at the Foes shop. We'd be running CNC machines. I was stamping frames at one point, like frame halves in the big like stamp press, and assembling frames and going to like the heat treating facility, doing everything. Like, that was just what we did.
Absolutely. And man, going back to the junior days, when I was working for Gary Hickman, and this is El Cajon, California, 2002, 2003, the fastest American junior at that time was a dude named Cody Warren. You raced Cody.
C-dub.
I raced
Hell
Cody.
Yeah.
Just got my ass kicked by Cody more times. His dad's shop, Metal Tech, was right next door to Gary Hickman's shop, Bombshell, on Vernon Way in El Cajon. So I'd be out there deburring parts on the wheel, watching Cody pressure wash his factory Haro bike, and I'm just thinking, like, dude, if I just didn't have to deburr so many parts, I could go do some sprints and maybe beat this dude. Like, like, it was just like we just lived it full time. And bringing it back to present day, so many riders are doing a similar thing, Kieran. Like what's going on at Windrock, what's going on at Ride Rock Creek in North Carolina. There are active racers who are full-time employees at the bike park that are operating machines, building trail, buying homes off of biking, mountain biking.
Yeah.
So it's a cool era. There's just so many ways that you can make it in the US that I don't know would exist in Europe.
Yeah, and I mean, we touched on, we've kind of touched a few times on, some of these factory teams and that from the past, but so I heard a rumor, and I mean, we'll see if it comes true, but that the Crestline Aaron Gwynn racing team will focus on US racing next year, which, I mean, I don't know, this could just be, something blown in the wind. But I think that would be awesome, and I think it makes total sense, because if this series is growing like it looks like it will, you've got a domestic brand in Crestline, you've got an American hero of downhill racing in Aaron Gwynn, who owns a bike park which has nationals, things like that. Like, it just seems to be the perfect storm for them to focus on domestic racing, to build those brands that matter in the US. It just seems ideal.
You nailed it. Well, for the record, you and I have heard the same rumor, but we can just verify it is a rumor at this point.
Yeah.
But, on that note, we're in an economy of stretching out the dollar.
Yeah.
And so race teams are just looking to stretch the buck. For transparency, Nico was transparent. Factory Frameworks had a operating budget of around $400,000 to go World Cupping this year. That's a shoestring budget to go racing internationally. The bulk of that money will not go to a single rider. The bulk of that money goes to airlines, baggage fees, customs, you name it. I mean, I don't even want to get into the crazy story of the gypsies that stole the Factory Framework stuff and stuff. Like, dude, insane. Like, that's a podcast in and of itself.
$400,000. That's not even going to pay for Luke Bruni to go racing. That's not covering his salary and his bonuses. And that's an entire team that has the next potential big thing of downhill racing in Ace of Amet. Has Angel Suarez, who is a very, very strong rider. Nico, who is running the team and also doing a bunch of racing. Like, that's a tight budget. But like, that's another brand. I actually had a few notes of brands I put in. It's like, you imagine like Frameworks, just a domestic factory team, like Frameworks racing in the US, what they could do with $400,000 if they just focused on the US. Like, it's perfect for them. Like, I guarantee that probably the bulk of their sales of bikes are staying in the US. There's going to be
Frameworks in today's climate. I mean, we know, like, we are in the climate of mass layoffs, companies panicking because they shit the bed during COVID, they overproduced, they thought this like gravy train was never going to end, and it did. And then now, it's just like everyone's hitting the panic rev. What are we going to do? Companies are getting sold like hotcakes. It's crazy. And right now it's like, you take $400,000, you operate a team in the US, guess what? Riders are going to get a piece of that, and they're going to get taken care of, right?
And you would be it's a legitimate setup. Like, it would
legitimate setup, and it may not be a ton of money up front. I mean, right now I don't think any downhill racers are going to make a ton of money unless you're Lockie Stevens of McNabb and you win US Open, you get a $15,000 payday.
Yeah.
Whatever the conversion rate is, like, dude.
Oh man, he's like buying a house in New Zealand with that conversion.
That's what I'm saying, and that's the goal, right? Like, to have riders, like, I just want to see more riders like end up like Nico Malali, where when Nico is ready to hang up his helmet and call it a career, he's got stuff to show for it. Yeah. You know what I mean? We want to replicate that, and it doesn't have to be all Americans. We're not like, look, I'm as proud of as they get to be an American, but I want to see all downhill racers thrive if they choose to come racing in the U.S. And that's why I got involved. What's that?
Like, I was going to say, could you imagine though, with, we talked about Crestline Frameworks, there's a bunch of, US bike brands, like, could you imagine if you show up and there's like a Crestline team, there's a Santa Cruz team, there's a Yeti team again, a Specialized team, Trek, like, there's a bunch of these domestic US headquartered brands that could just turn it around and make it just this incredible series super quick.
Yeah, and there's plenty of couches for riders to sleep on. I mean, the community's still the same, Kieran. Nothing has changed. Yeah. We're very well. Mikey Hatterer still got a bus. Maybe we'll see Mikey Hatterer just busing Kiwis and Aussies to the Monster Energy Pro Downhill Circuit next year.
He could start like in motocross, and they've got, what was it, Teddy Parks, and he basically just had the privateer semi-truck taking all their bikes and shit around. Like, someone just needs to start that in the US. All the Kiwis can fly in, they'll just hang out in this one bus and it'll take everyone around all the Sohem races.
Oh, dude, like this crazy idea I've had, and like I was just watching, Elon Musk has just like announced, like Tesla's announced that they're going to have like these automated like buses. Like, we need to start thinking like bigger. Like, what if we had Tesla get involved, sponsored programs, and we're like taking care of all the logistics, traveling to all these races with these Tesla auto driving vans. You load them up with the bikes. Like, dude, we got to be forward thinking like that. You know, riders need to be forward thinking like that. I say that because I'm sure somebody listening knows somebody that maybe knows Elon. So you just got to put it out there.
Hey, you never know. You never know. Yeah. Man, yeah, I think I'm pretty excited for it. I mean, like, you actually, there was another thing I wanted to touch on. Like, you just touched on Lockie, Stevens McNabb winning the US Open. Who
Badass. What
actually,
a savage. Just real quick,
yeah,
dude, that kid, holy shit. I mean, he was hovering, dude. Like,
yeah,
it was very difficult to commentate that race run. I was just like, wanted to just, you know what I mean? I was just did one of those things. Like, who is this? What is going on?
yeah.
So
No,
good.
he was flying, and I think we worked out that he was the first Kiwi to win it since John Ciccoldi in 2003. I think it was when Masters had dropped that fact on Instagram. So,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty sick to see. And I mean, like I say, like that was a $15,000 win, and it's amazing that, like, I mean, Clay and his team, I think I heard him say they put $68,000 prize money up for that race.
For
Like,
the US
incredible.
Open.
Yeah,
And that's on top of, it was $2,500 for a race win. SR Sun Tour threw down $500 per gender, for like men and
yeah.
women were winning $500 to get to the first split the fastest.
Ah, yeah,
Which,
they had
think
the whole
about
shot
it, as a
award. That's
privateer,
pretty sick.
like dude, yeah, like Kyle Strait raced the Snow Summit Monster Energy Pro downhill, and he was
Yeah.
8th. Like, he nearly hole shot it, right? So if
Damn.
you're like, if you show
Like
up, you know,
Kyle.
like, you know what, got a little double chin, been eating a little too many cheeseburgers, but I got 18 seconds of
I
haul
got the
ass in me.
first split.
Yeah, and you get $500, and you know your weekend's covered, at least entry
Yeah.
fee and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean that's awesome to see, you know, the likes of Suntour getting involved in that as well and throwing something else in there. And I mean, Monster seemed pretty invested, which is fantastic because it's,
Oh yeah,
I mean, without the energy drinks, love them or hate them, like, I mean, again, going back to motocross, half of those motocross teams wouldn't survive without the energy drink money in there. So it's like,
oh, positively,
how
and
cool
and
would it
and,
be to
and
see a Monster Energy whatever team, you know, racing downhill in the
yeah.
US? So
Well, Kieran, it's twofold. So Monster Energy is putting up, they're the title sponsor of the Monster Energy Pro Downhill, but then they
mm,
have the Monster Army program, which is what like Eris rides for, Dante Silva,
yeah,
Dooley, Pinkerton. I don't know if you've had that structure. Like, if we were doing it, if the Monster Army was a thing when we were doing it, brother, we would have been paid, or at least not paying out of pocket
damn,
so much. Like, the
yeah,
incentive structure for the Monster Army program is phenomenal.
yeah.
Stephen Walton, if he's listening to this, is probably going to hate me because the influx of sponsorship applications should be pouring in. But
I
yeah,
might send
man,
it in, send me his email address. I'm gonna come join
dude,
it.
seriously, shout out Monster Energy. Like, I will unleash the beast at, like, yeah, any day, all day. Give me some.
Yeah.
Monster Energy is doing a lot for
How is
athletes.
how is the industry in terms of you know, component brands? Like you said, it's us until, you know, they're involved, they're putting up money for the whole shot. I assume they're like at the races. What's the vibe like? You know, we used to have Maxis and DT Swiss, and you know there was always a bunch of brands kind of traveling around. But is that kind of still there, or coming back, or
I would say it's coming back. So at round 1 of the Monster Energy Pro Downhill at Ride Rock Creek in North Carolina,
yeah,
the pits were full. I mean, we saw
yeah,
Yeti come back. We saw, obviously, the frameworks had like such a sick setup. They had their full World Cup set up there. But yeah,
yeah,
TRP is starting to show up. What would be good to see, Maxis Continental is actually making a good push. So Continental had
yeah?
good brand presence. Volcom has a mountain bike line now.
Oh,
The
no
Volcom
way!
dude
Yeah,
showed
yeah,
up.
of course.
So I would say the vibe, Kieran, is that this year people were interested, and then by US Open, it seems like most companies are going, how do we get involved? You know,
Yeah,
how can we support this more? Let's go. You know, people are
yeah,
looking, because for these companies, they need excuses to make contact with riders in person.
yeah,
You know, like is like the deeper we go into being just barcodes, human barcodes on bikes and just humanoids or whatever, like nothing replaces the human to human contact experience.
Yeah.
And so companies realize that. And then going back to frameworks, I wanted to point out frameworks in this climate is the only bike company I know of that is pre-selling and selling out of everything they're manufacturing.
Yeah.
And they're not laying off anybody. You know
No,
what I mean?
no, like,
So
it's actually like, it's quite insane. I mean, when I looked at, you know, what Nico was doing a year ago or whatever, and I was like, man, how is this going to work? You know, no one's buying downhill bikes. But I think the thing is like, downhill bike is a niche. And if you've got this company that's just like pouring their heart and soul into it, you know, like Nico's a racer, he's doing everything he possibly can to make this bike as good as it can be. You know, like he's trialing everything. And I think people just see like, damn, like this is someone truly invested. They're not just stamping their name on a bike that's come out of Taiwan or whatever and calling it their downhill bike. So it's pretty cool to see.
It's just, I think what Frameworks is doing is a sign of the times. And same with Clay, the Monster Energy Pro Downhill Series director. We're in a period where the savvy riders, business people that are pouring their hearts into this are going slow, controlled growth. They're not just doing the typical American build it fast, build it cheap, maximum profits, and then who cares what happens. Like, this is about long-term growth and sustainability for a race economy. Because there's a bunch of us battered old bastards that are forgotten about now that, you know, just want, that's really where the intentions are coming from. Everyone involved with the series is doing so because they want to see the sport better than it was when either they were a part of it or when they entered it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I want to jump into a similar but different topic now, and I'm going to throw you on the spot, but what's the best venue you ever raced at in the US?
Oh, goodness.
I don't know, it could be track, it could just be like the whole thing, like...
Dude, it's a three-way tie between Mount Snow, Vermont, the 2006 track, Durango, Colorado, the World Cup track, and Sandpoint, Idaho, which was 05. I don't know if you ever raced Sandpoint.
So I never raced Sandpoint, never raced Durango, but yeah, neither of those. Those two had kind of disappeared by that point.
They did, yeah. It's a three-way tie between those three. All right. You know what? I'm honestly going to go with Mount Snow. I'm going to go with Mount Snow, Vermont.
I raced that one. It was actually funny because when I was thinking about stuff with this pod, I was like, man, it would be so sick to see Mount Snow come back. Like, that was such an iconic venue of the Norbert era. Just the most insane, wide open, taped, like massive, crazy hucks off like rock slabs, and just like the yard sale section down in the woods near the bottom, the rock garden. Like, it was iconic.
It totally was. I mean, it obviously, it did. Dude, could you imagine the highlight reels of a Mount Snow, like, yard sale, like highlight reel right now? It'd be like gazillions of views because it's just ragdoll, 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 ragdoll. And then Jared Rando comes through real sick. But, I'm going to go with Mount Snow. And then on that, going back to the Monster Energy Pro Downhill Series, it was a 4-race series this year. The goal is to grow. It's going to be likely a 5-race series next year. And I just spoke to Clay today. So the the Rocky Mountains is going to be, that's where he wants to have another stop. So that there's going to be east, west, and central.
Nice.
Because as you know, the United States is it's massive. It's like 2,200 plus miles coast to coast.
It's a wide old country. I've driven across that thing more than enough times.
Yeah. Oh man, the Great American Road Trip of 2009 was, I will take that to the grave. A happy man. That was a fun time.
Rockies would be good. I always loved racing around like that Colorado area.
Yeah.
For me, I loved Angel Fire. Did you race Angel Fire?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, Angel Fire 07, I had a good qualifier. I qualified 5th. It was kind of like my first professional downhill, like, hey, guys, I got my shit together. Yeah. But I had a mechanical and then yard sailed. And then in 08, I was there in 08 when you won it. But I had the polar opposite weekend that you did, man. I went home. I had a third butt cheek, dude. I had a hematoma on my left hip. I took 2 massive slams because you remember it snowed.
We were riding practice in snow.
Yeah, it was so sketchy,
Yeah.
and it's like relatively flat. You have to carry your speed. You have to keep the
Yeah.
speed high, and it was just really really slippery. And I stacked it on my left hip twice, like full on skateboarder style. Like, I mean, I still have like the hip, the pointer. I have like a point on the left side of my hip,
Jeez.
not from me busting my pelvis, like from Angel Fire '08.
Yeah.
And dude, I had to wear sweatpants for a month because like I had about a 42 waist from my third butt cheek, dude. It was,
Oh man,
yeah,
it's wild.
brutal. But yeah, Angel Fire is a good one.
That was a cool track. I always enjoyed that one, but yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff around. And I think like because the country is so big, you get such a big variety. Like
Oh
you
yeah,
get
I'm glad you.
such a
I was just
difference
going to touch on
in
that.
venues. Yeah, like you go to
Yeah.
SoCal and it's like, you know, you go race at Big Bear or say Mammoth and it's like this crazy moon dust and rocks and it's so hard to ride. And then you go to, I haven't ridden in Tennessee, but like you go ride East Coast, like, you know, I raced in North Carolina and Vermont and that, and it's like you've got this crazy, quite often wet, like slippery.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a whole different vibe, like
It
completely
is,
different.
yeah. Like the East Coast, the soil types change throughout the country, right? So on the East Coast, you're gonna have a lot of like clay, blue clay. The loam is different because the trees, it's a lot of like oak family trees, a lot of pine trees, like penny pines and stuff like that. Where out west, the Intermountain West, the California West Coast, it's pretty much exclusively like Douglas firs, like just big pine trees, right?
Yeah,
So you get that moon dust and out west and the Intermountain West, and then like yeah, the Rocky Mountains are they're rocky, like Angel Fire. I mean, it is just like a beatdown. It's just like a 5 minute whoop track of but rocks and
yeah.
roots. So, and then up in the
Snowmass just wide open and dusty
wide
and
open,
rocky and
yeah.
like yeah, there's some awesome venues.
And then you get up into the northwest and you get that like just super dank New Zealand-esque loam that's
Yeah,
just that real dark, just
yeah,
phenomenal soil
straight
that
up
you
there.
can nearly do no wrong.
Yeah, I mean you could. I mean, yeah, I mean obviously they've got a vision of what they're doing and going, but it's like yeah, you could touch on just about everything within a series. It'd be awesome, you know. So you know, SoCal, Northwest, Rockies, East Coast, man, could be amazing.
It'll get there. It'll get there. And hopefully, man, again, I'm going to throw it out there. Tesla, how sick would that be? Just automated. Like Mikey Hatter is out of the picture. I mean, Hatter is always obviously welcome, but like he doesn't have to drive the bus. It's just like
Yeah,
this automated like Tesla deal, and everyone's getting a fat Tesla paycheck. How good would that be? In addition to the Monster paychecks and the Red Bull paychecks and whatever else comes in.
damn, I have to make a comeback. If I'm
Think
making a
big.
comeback, what race should I come do? Where's my race going to be? Now, granted, I'm
I'd say
pretty old.
I'd say you're gonna have to hit either U.S. Open. I'd put U.S. Open at the top.
Yeah.
Big Bear. I mean, Big Bear.
Mm,
I'd put that up there. But then aside from that, Windrock. Windrock would be an experience. Windrock is sick.
yeah,
What they're doing. I mean,
it
they're
looks
just
good.
building the way they're building the trails at Windrock and even at Rock Creek. They're trying to mimic the World Cup impacts and
Yeah.
pitch.
So
So
Windrock is that's Aaron Gwynn's place, right? That's
correct,
his.
and that's in
Yeah.
Tennessee. And honestly, like if we were doing it, like if I'm putting myself, like if I'm a Kiwi or an Aussie and I'm thinking about contending some race series in the U.S., I would base myself in either Tennessee or North Carolina.
Yeah.
That's where you want to be based. So in our era, it was Southern California. That's where you wanted to
Yeah.
be. Now you want to be in Tennessee or North Carolina.
Yeah. How's you like Southern California, the likes of Big Bear and that? Are they? I know Big Bear's kind of been all over the place, but are they actually operating the bike park kind of full time in those places in the summer?
100% full time. And I'm
Yeah.
hearing that lift lines at Snow Summit can be like up to an hour or more
Oh
on a
wow.
regular weekend. I
Yeah.
mean, so it's bigger than it ever was.
Yeah. That's impressive.
And saying, yeah, like you go to Rock Creek, Ride Rock Creek and that Nico's bike park is busiest. Both Ride Rock Creek and Windrock are busiest in the off season because
Yeah.
everybody is just training. A ton of Canadians come down, a bunch of people from all over the world.
Yeah.
Brands are starting to do press camps and product release camps at these venues as well. So yeah,
That's awesome. I think
it's
there's a lot going on. It's good to see.
it's exciting times. I mean, That's why I put my hat in. I had to get involved with the Monster Energy Pro Downhill Series when it was announced.
Yeah.
And I just said,
No,
I hit
I
up
mean-
Nico. I was like, I do a killer Monster Energy voice, Nico. Get me in there. And he's like, well, dude, I don't do it, but like, you could do my race series downhill Southeast. I actually need a new MC. Job's yours if you want it. I said, sign me up, brother. I'm in.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. I mean, like, I'm such a fan of US downhill racing, and it's so sick to see it come back, you know, looking possibly even stronger than it has been for a long, long time. So, and I mean, that's why I reached out to you, because I was like, this would be cool to just jump in, talk US downhill. You know, we'll focus on one area, and hopefully we can make this a, you know, something regular next year. It'd be pretty cool to actually just chat racing after each of these events. And
positively, Kieran.
If
Yeah,
the stars
any
align,
excuse
maybe
to-
I can come over and we'll do it in person.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm going to get you and Clay connected this week.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then we'll see if what the stars can align for us.
Yeah, no, that'll be awesome. I mean, this has been great trip down memory lane. Great to you know, talk US downhill in its current state as well. So I think I might have to get you to maybe line up some guests. We'll get some current races in here as well. That'd be pretty cool. We'll get some guys
I think
who
we
are
can do
chasing
that.
that series.
Yeah, I think we can do
No.
that. And I'll do my best to get down to NZ, man. I'm OTB off the back on making my
Mate,
trip down there. It's on the bucket list item. My wife and I need to come visit, man. What a place.
Yep. Always welcome to come stay, without a doubt. We'll welcome you with open arms, but would love to catch up. It's funny because, I mean, we message a bunch, but this is the first time I've actually talked to you face to face for a long time, so it's been great chatting with you. But
Yeah, since we did the inside line a couple of years back.
Yeah, and I mean, I said to you in the message the other day, that was the inspiration for me to start a podcast. You got me on the Vital Inside Line, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do one of these myself. And here we are a couple of years later, and we're back chatting, so it's awesome. Come full circle.
Love it, Kieran. A great job on this podcast, man. I love the OTB podcast. It's been awesome to see you grow. And let me know where to send some money for shipping. I'd like my T-shirt.
Oh, yeah, I've got a... Do you need a large or an extra large? I've got one aside for you. I've got one of each.
I'm XL these days. You know,
All right.
I'm on a weight cut. I gotta officiate a wedding next month, so I'm like motivated to, you know, get down to fighting weight. But XL,
Good.
tall teams are back in style.
I've got you. I've got one here for you. No, thanks. This has been awesome, Griz. Honestly, been such a good time, and I look forward to doing the next one.
Thank you for having me, Kieran, and listeners. Thank you for listening. Much love.
Absolutely.
Come race in the US. We'd love to have you on.
It'd be great. We'll talk to you all again real soon.
What's up?
I come
from the land of down on I can't hear you. What was that? I can't hear you. I let it be like John Lennon, the anti-serum that you don't get for poisonous venom. Read the label carefully, I'm only here for the show. I love hip-hop too much to let you feed my ego. In the key of F-U-C-K, Y-O-U. I mean, why do I owe you if you're not helping me through? I mean, why do I owe you if you're obstructing my view? Success is not my castle, just a house that's brand new. You see, I irrigate the culture, give it shape like a sculpture. Still complicated, rock like I'm supposed to. B-L-I-T-Z like my DJ. Rock to the rhythm like you rock to what he plays.